Okay, it looks like we don't have technical difficulties today. We just have emotional difficulties as the United Happy Hour win streak is finally over. Not that I wanted it to end. United drop one. We're feeling a little somber, so grab yourself a pint, grab yourself something stronger if you need to. Let's have the therapy session. Let's do the United Happy Hour.
Or let's not, because Pauly's currently walked off. So we will try the intro again, Pauly. Try the intro again.
Did it not
work?
Try
the intro again. You walked off, mate.
I went to go put the cider in the refrigerator, back in the refrigerator, so it wouldn't go bad.
Hello and welcome back to the United Happy Hour. One of all the technical difficulties we've had in the past, Pauly, I think that's got to be my favourite. I wish somebody was recording these for an outtake show. I'll tell you, we've got plenty for people. Got plenty of glitches to show people. But yeah, welcome back to the Happy Hour. At least you started it off on the right tone, Pauly. You've got us laughing. That's more than we can say we were doing last night, mate. I don't think there was a lot of United fans laughing after last night's performance. Like you said, Pauly, the win streak is over now with the United Happy Hour. I suppose that monkey's off our back, mate. And we've just got to see now moving forward. Another tough game at the weekend. But what did you make of it last night?
Disappointing, always. Not something that we should be shocked about. Remember, we sat here last week, 2 weeks ago, I'd say, and we asked about, would you rather, when we said, would you rather knock Liverpool out of the cup? Would you do that even if it meant dropping points at Anfield and at Craven Cottage? And we went through the upcoming schedule and we said, you have Fulham away. That's a tough game. Sheffield United at home, Arsenal away, Southampton. There's somewhere points are going to be dropped. We couldn't win them all. We haven't really been playing well. And this was in the United States, we call this a trap game, just a classic situation where you had the big win on Sunday. You have a tough task coming up against Arsenal, which, the media will still play that up as a big game. It's not as big as it used to be, but Arsenal are also really hot. They've won a bunch of games in a row. So it's a tough one. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has only beaten Arsenal once, the first time he played them in the FA Cup. So it was easy to look past Sheffield United, and you had to make sure that they didn't. And they looked like they were. Having said that, they were by far and away the better team for 90 minutes. They just weren't playing up to their best, and they still got unlucky to lose. That's not to say that they deserve to win, but they got unlucky in that they lost.
Yeah, considering you put that tweet out, Pauly, before the game yesterday, I think you're absolutely spot on, and it's the way it played out for me. Last night, the game was all about mentality. Yes, we can talk about Ole making 6 changes. I mean, I've said on other shows, I think that you don't really want to be rotating more than 3 or 4 for a league game, but the changes that came in, Pauly, they're not alien. These players have been at the club long enough now, especially to do a job against the team down at the bottom. And I think you were absolutely spot on when you say it's mentality, because if you look at a lot of the mistakes United made last night and the way that the goals came about, Pauly, a lot of that was a mentality issue, especially that second goal for me. You can question the mentality of a couple of players during that Sheffield United attack, which I'm sure we'll get onto at some point. But, it's frustrating, isn't it, Pauly? Because that's the thing. If you want to win these titles, you want to win these big trophies, you've got to show the same hunger in these games as you do for the games against the Big Six. You
do. But at the same time, what we say last week against Fulham, this is January. This is where things get difficult. The games are tough at this point, and it's not about blowing teams away. It's just about do enough to win. And we're seeing all these teams drop points, except for Manchester City. But you look at every year. Obviously, this is a bit of a weird year because we're going to have some more midweek games. But every year at the, January starts, you play New Year's Day, then the first weekend's the FA Cup, then that midweek is the League Cup semifinal, then you play in the league again. That midweek is for FA Cup replays. I think you then play in the league again. Maybe the next round, maybe it's by then the next round of the FA Cup, and then that League Cup, and then the final week of January is a midweek fixture in the Premier League. And over the last 5 years, we have not won that fixture a single time. The last time we won this, the last week of January, midweek fixture, Louis van Gaal was in charge. And it has nothing to do with the manager or anything. It just goes to show you, like, these games get tricky. You look at this list. Hull City, I believe they got relegated that year. Tottenham's a good team. Burnley are Burnley, and they bogeyed us twice. And then Sheffield United, the worst team in the league this year. It's just a matter of these. If you're going to sit back, this is the time of the year where playing in that deep block is going to work, because you have to work that much harder to break down a deep block. You have to work that much harder to score against it. And the players are tired. And
this comment here, Paulie, wanted to ask how can we unlock these deep sitting blocks going forward? Always seem to be an issue. But people say that, United have come across deep sitting block teams a bit this season and been okay with it, Paulie. So it's hard to sort of I say okay with it. I suppose Wolves kind of came with the same game plan, and United were lucky to win that game. To be fair, they grabbed the last minute goal, but there has been other occasions where I feel like United have come against low block teams and actually done okay against it. I thought they were getting over that issue, but obviously it still seems to be there. How do you think they combat that, Paulie, moving forward?
If beating low blocks was easy, Liverpool wouldn't have lost to Burnley last week.
Yeah.
So, and The Athletic just ran an article this morning. I oddly don't have the tweet that I posted about this, about Tottenham and their ability to beat the big teams and how they're dropping points in other games. And it's because they just sit in this low block and pick teams off on the counter. Exactly how they beat Manchester City. And I'm like, where's all the criticism of Mourinho that he can pick off the big teams and can't beat the small teams? Because that's always been the criticism of Oli. And you look at it. We've played against teams with the big blocks, with the low blocks, where we've had all the ball. That happened to us 11 times in the first half of the season last year. We won one of those games. And that was like the halfway point against Newcastle on Boxing Day, where we just blew them out. Second half of the season, things changed. We got much better at it. We won 8 of 13. This year, we've won 7 out of 9. Yeah. So it's not been as big of an issue. And it, at the same time, it has been, though, because how have we beaten them? We got that goal from Rashford. Paul Pogba comes up with a goal against Burnley. Paul Pogba comes up with a goal against Fulham. Moments of brilliance. But that's what every team requires. Vincent Kompany smashing that goal from 35 yards against Leicester. I could name Kevin De Bruyne doing something spectacular. How many times have we seen it change on a set?
Aguero against QPR, their first league title.
Well, that was different. That was throwing that's what you want. That was throwing the kitchen sink at you.
But they were playing a low block team though.
Yes.
when they were 2-1 up anyway.
But Liverpool started to struggle when they sold Coutinho, because Coutinho used to be the guy that bailed them out, and it was a moment of brilliance. And if Coutinho didn't give you that moment of brilliance, then Liverpool couldn't get the win. And I spoke about this morning. I tweeted about it, and we got some interesting responses on Twitter. This is why Ferguson valued the wide players even against deep blocks. Like, having wide players only does something if you know if you use it properly. Once you get the ball wide, you still need to get it back to the middle and get the ball into a dangerous area. United's issue wasn't that they didn't have width.
Can I just add something to that as well, Paulie? I would say as well, these days, I think more teams are playing with 3/5 at the back, which makes going wide for me less effective, because obviously the reason Ferguson was successful with that is because when you're shifting a back four across the pitch, you're creating more space than when you're trying to shift a back five across the pitch, obviously.
Right. And the key is where your good wing play is going to come in is when you hit them fast. It wasn't that United didn't have width. Greenwood, Wan-Bissaka, Tellez were planted on the outside. Here's the situation. United get the ball in transition to Greenwood. Wan-Bissaka makes the run towards the corner. That's what you want to do. And if Greenwood plays him the ball, this defender is going to have to follow him. And is going to have to follow Wan-Bissaka. And now if you look in the middle, you have Bruno, Rashford, Martial. They can make runs towards the goal to get at the end of a cross against 3 defenders. But instead, Greenwood doesn't do that. Instead, Greenwood takes a touch and he cuts to the inside. And he plays a 1-2 with Bruno. And look at what happens when this thing loads. I'll show you. What ends up happening is now Sheffield have gotten back. And boom, look at that. Now there's 7 players right in the middle of the pitch to mark 4 United players. And they have a guy that's still wide on Wan-Bissaka. So there's nowhere to go. The ball comes out to Pogba. He plays it wide to Tellez. And it's already, you still have all those guys in the middle and you still have all those guys back. So you just need to hit them quickly. But it's not about width. It's about what you do with that width. United in the second half just started pumping in cross after cross after cross, which is Phil Jagielka can deal with that. If you had Trent Alexander-Arnold, it wouldn't have helped you. You have to hit them quickly with the width. And let's not forget one really important thing. We talked about this last week, how any win at Craven Cottage is good because United always struggled there. Even Sir Alex Ferguson, he struggled when the pitches were small because teams could pack in the middle. So he struggled to break down those teams when they sat in the block. How many times, even during the 2008 season, where that's probably the best United team that Sir Alex Ferguson ever had.
Yeah.
It gets forgotten how many times they got bailed out by a Ronaldo penalty or a Ronaldo free kick or just a moment of Cristiano Ronaldo magic. It happened against Everton at home where he scored, I think, 2 goals late on, but it was he squared up a defender at the edge of the box, put it on his left foot and just put his left foot through it. And it was like, that goal was a piece of magic.
Yeah.
There were plenty of other games where for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, they struggled. And then Ronaldo would hit one from outside the box. They'd go up 1-0 and that would force teams to come out of their shell. And then they'd beat them 4-0. They'd blow the doors off them because now they had space. But the longer teams hunkered down and stayed with it, the more United struggled and the more they relied on Ronaldo to bail them out. Or how many times did Beckham bail them out with a free kick or Giggs? So
there was that Tottenham game that season where I think they were 2-0 down at half time, wasn't there? And Ronaldo was part of the comeback that made it 5-2, obviously, wasn't it? I think it was at the end. But
that was the next season. How'd they get bailed out of that? Because they gave a penalty that was not a penalty. When Gomez took out Michael Carrick, but he didn't really. And
but Ronaldo scored it, and then like you say,
it just fell apart for Tottenham. So a lot of there's a reason that Sam Allardyce takes over clubs that are in the relegation zone and plays this way because it's hard to score against them. And United had all the ball. They kept pushing. They were just slow. They didn't take their chances. And then they just had some crazy mistakes and bad luck go against them on the other way. I didn't think that Harry Maguire fouled their goalkeeper, but I didn't really think that David De Gea got fouled either. I think that was a both or none situation. You either let both, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Martial's goal should have counted and theirs shouldn't have. I think either neither of them should have, or they both should have counted. So, but either way, that's a goal for us because, and it's, it's suddenly it's 0-0 or it's 1-1.
Yeah.
And
Paulie, just on this comment here, usually wing play is traditionally attributed to being part of the United way. This is from Lokesh. Is this the same, and do we require that now? So what he's saying is, are we still a team that are sort of defined by our wing play, and if not, do we need to get back to that?
We are not. We don't need to get back to it. We just need a threat from the right side. Wing play in and of itself doesn't exist anymore. That's your fullback's job now. All right. Leicester were kind of a throwback. Leicester were like they're playing 4-4-2 and they're using pacey and tricky wingers and Riyad Mahrez. And I mean, Mark Albrighton is like not a tricky winger, but he's just there to put in the shift and everything.
Yeah.
That's not going to work anymore in these days. That's what you need. Your fullbacks provide that. And you need forwards that can come in and score. And that's why Mason Greenwood gets to play on the right. That's why Mason Greenwood is preferred there, because he can put it on his left foot and score, but he struggles to do all the other things. And when United are facing a team that sits deep, Marcus Rashford struggles to get in behind, and he struggles to be able to run at people, because Marcus Rashford thrives at running at defenders. But if there's 3 defenders there, he'll run at them anyway, but it's not going to work. They're going to stop you. And he struggles to pick out that pass. He's not great in tight spaces. So you need to figure something else out. I didn't, by halftime, it was clear this was a game that needed Cavani. I didn't think it was a bad choice to start Martial, but by halftime, you probably needed Cavani.
I get that. Paulie, what about, before we move on to looking at what's on social media, sorry, not this, I'll bring that one up after. What about this question here from Christian? Let's talk about this player, Paulie. What now with Tony? And obviously he's talking about Anthony Martial. After yesterday, we have to question his position in the starting lineup. Now, for me, Paulie, we've talked on this show before. Look, he just needs a goal. We think he'll get his goal scoring form back. And I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely cool with that. If it was just the fact that he wasn't scoring goals, I'm okay with that. But he was one of the players last night that I was really disappointed with, Paulie, in terms of effort, endeavour, and mentality. And the problem is, with a player like Martial, it's usually easy to label him as one of those players. But last night, I thought it really showed. And that's why I would be questioning his place in the team now, not just because he's not scoring goals.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair to question that. Yeah. It goes back to what else do you do? Because, look, it's not like Cavani's been scoring a bunch of goals recently. He scored the winner against Everton. That was over a month ago. And he scored the equalizer against Fulham. And that's been it. Now, his movement has been great, and he's done a lot of great things, but he's 33, and we already said you have to manage his minutes. We saw what happened in the beginning of right when he first got here. As soon as we asked him to play 3 times in a week, he did his hamstring. So you have to be careful with that. Does he deserve to be playing right now? Certainly over Martial. Martial is difficult though, because defensively, he's not pressing as much as he was last year, but neither is anybody. That's by design. Yeah. So it's not just him. The only person who still does it is Bruno. And sometimes you could tell Bruno's just going rogue and doing it on his own when the rest of the team isn't with him. And that's, a problem also, because Bruno's just exerting energy for no reason. His link-up play, those numbers are the same as last year. His passing numbers are very similar to what they were last year. Everything else about his game has been very similar. He's getting around the same number of shots a game. He's getting around the same quality shots as he used to. They're just not going in. Mm. The bigger issue, it's fun. The Athletic actually wrote an article about this like 3 weeks ago, which is really poorly timed because Marcus Rashford had just scored a winner and then assisted a winner. But it talked about how United's issue wasn't so much Martial, but Rashford, because Rashford's numbers across the board are down. He's just put the ball in the net a few times and he's assisted a few times, so you don't realize it. But part of the United haven't been playing well at all recently in recent games. Yeah. They've gotten to a certain extent lucky. And it's been Bruno Fernandes has been awful for the month of January. And this was one of my worries because everybody knows what his goal contributions were last year. And in 2020, he was probably the best player in Europe. Not named Messi or Ronaldo. That qualifier. Yeah. On New Year's, I said it on a different show. I got scared because in baseball, in the United States, in baseball, it's so stats driven, and things change so weirdly. When a month changes, it's so weird how somebody will be hitting the crap out of the ball in April, and May 1st, they go 0 for 4, and you're like, whatever, he's been hitting the crap out of the ball. You don't realize it. And then suddenly May 10th, you look and you go, well, since May 1st, he's gotten 2 hits and 30 at-bats, and all of a sudden he's in a slump. And this happens so frequently. The calendar changes and something weird happens. And I said, I just hope that when we turn the page, and I think I even tweeted it, like, hey, someone don't let Bruno Fernandez know that it's 2021 now. Like, make him still think it's 2020. He's one of the few people in the world that had a good 2020.
Yeah, that's true.
Since 2021 has started, he has scored 1 penalty that he played no part in winning, and 1 free kick that he played no part in winning. They were 2 big goals. They both won us games, but he has no other goals and no assists. Yeah. And
Bruno did something yesterday, Paulie, that we've talked about on the show before, and you've highlighted it. I should give you credit for it. We've talked about it, but you highlighted it. When we were struggling yesterday, he kept coming deep, Paulie, and he kept coming into areas of the pitch that you don't want Bruno. He could see it was one of those nights because he's a clever player, he's an intelligent player. He could see that United were going to struggle, but I can see what he's trying to do, and it's brilliant what he's trying to do. There was a moment when he chased the Sheffield United player back 30 yards and got a tackle, which is fantastic to see. I mean, when we talk about mentality, that's what we want, Paulie. But also, I don't want Bruno on the ball on the halfway line. But when we need a goal, I need him to hold his position a bit more as well and be effective in that area of the pitch, especially when you've got Paul Pogba on the pitch as well, Paulie. That's even less of an excuse for me for him to drop that deep.
Yeah, this tweet sums it up. Was we lost that match in midfield. It doesn't sum it up. It's a dumb tweet. We lost that match in midfield, Paulie. As a combo, Matic and Pogba didn't work today at all. And this is...
Go for it, Paulie. Go on, mate. Go for it.
It's not... Here's what it is. This is exactly the problem with McTominay and Fred. Pogba and Matic did not lose that match for United, but they did not help them win it. And that is the problem with McTominay. This game, I'm not fully finished watching it back, but I started watching it back this morning, and it looked like a game that when McTominay and Fred are in the midfield, it wasn't fast. They weren't incisive. Occasionally, certainly during the first 15 minutes, Pogba was being direct and trying to play these through balls, which yesterday I tweeted during the game, we're playing these through balls and they're just not coming off. So what should we do? We should keep playing them because we did this against Sheffield the first time. And, Rashford was offside every time. And then it was like, just keep playing it. Eventually it'll come off and we'll score. They stopped playing them. They just stopped. And we were walking the ball forward. Maguire was walking. Bruno's numbers where his touches are. He did a lot of Bruno things, but like you just said, he was dropping deep. His numbers look very similar to what they are with McTominay and Fred. He's touching it deeper, and then he's not touching it so much in the attacking third. When he does touch it in the attacking third, he's doing it in the box.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And that's not what you want. So, and because it was taking them so long, United were playing like this 3-1-6 formation, essentially, with Matic in the back 3, Pogba in the midfield, and then 6 guys forward, which just made it easy for Sheffield to
condense it all, condense the space and
make it difficult for us to
drop
do
deep as well. They were allowed to drop deep, weren't they? You know what I mean? And not allow any room in behind like they were probably guilty of in the first match.
And that's because when we got it wide or when we got it through, we just didn't do it quick enough. We played this formation and everybody's just there and you're not going to find any space. And therefore Bruno was ineffective. I remember saying yesterday at halftime, like they were trying to play the blame game. And I was like, I noticed that you didn't say Bruno. And I was like, I'll assume that's because you forgot that he was playing, which is a fair assumption.
Either that or he's just built up so much credit, Paulie, over the months now that it was a fair
assumption. It was a fair assumption to say that, to forget that Bruno wasn't playing because he was that ineffective. And and that's the problem. He's been pretty ineffective this whole month. It's been a moment, Pogba, a moment against Burnley, a moment against Fulham. You need more. You can't just, it's great that Pogba's doing that. He's supposed to, but he's a midfielder. You need your forwards to do something too. And Rashford scored against Liverpool. Rashford and Greenwood both scored against Liverpool. Their last league goals, they haven't scored a league goal this month. Who were the guys that missed the chances against Liverpool? Pogba and Bruno. Like you need more from the forward. And this comment from NZ, we lacked in creativity yesterday, and that's worrying, especially when your forwards are not firing. That's the problem. We need the forwards to be firing.
Yeah. That was the key to our success in the second half of last season, Paulie. We talked about the strikers scoring 60 goals between that front three, wasn't there, last year? And if you think after Project Restart and our run towards that top four finish, where we eventually finished third, obviously, that was down to the goals of Rashford, Martial, and Greenwood. Obviously, the creativity and the odd chip in from Bruno here and there, but those goals were pivotal, really, weren't they, for that success?
You said it. The goals of Greenwood, Rashford, Martial. It was mainly Martial. Rashford, I think, scored 2 goals during that stretch. It was Martial and Greenwood chimed in with some goals, and Bruno chimed in with some goals, and Pogba had one. What really stood out to me in this game, aside from just the overall blondness and everything, is how there were 2 players that we were very clearly missing.
Yeah.
One is Victor Lindelof. And Axel Tuanzebe did not have a good game, but he wasn't that bad.
No, and not necessarily from a defending point of view either, because if you remember in the first
very
game
good going forward,
it was Lindelof's assist, wasn't it, for one of Rashford's goals, Paulie? That's what you're missing from Lindelof last night.
Right. Axel was actually pretty good going forward. But here's what I think you miss with Lindelof. Everybody talks about how vocal he is and how he's always yelling and keeping the players organized. People comment how Maguire's, just doesn't yell enough. Luke Shaw yells a lot. Victor Lindelof, everybody says he yells the most and keep things very organized. And I don't think I'm not blaming Axel for this, because typically Maguire's out there. So if Axel's going to play, it's going to be at the expense of Lindelof, and therefore he's just not playing with Lindelof. But I don't think it's a coincidence that when Axel's been out there, and even Bailly, we've been giving up these goals that come from lack of organization. The first one's a set piece, and we give up set pieces no matter who's on the pitch. Tuanzebe did miss the header, which if that was Lindelof, you would have never heard the end of it. But because
you could argue there was a foul in there as well, Paul.
Exactly.
We're not going to get onto that. I'm not going to go in that, but everyone saw it with their own eyes.
A lot went wrong on that set piece, but then that second goal, there's just such a breakdown, and things are just.
The second goal, I can't talk about the second goal, Paulie. I mean, the amounts of opportunities that Martial has to get back in the box and get in position, the amount of opportunities Matic has got to get out to get to his man. There's so many things on that. Players stood with their hands behind their backs, which I absolutely hate, Paulie. I know it's a product of the modern game and why they're doing it, but I hate to see it. And then, like you say, just it said like there was a lack of leadership and organisation at the back, which just everything about that goal was just wrong. It was like a perfect storm, but the opposite of a perfect storm, but the same thing happened, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. And then the other goal that I was going to bring up, that goal in Istanbul, was just not anybody in particular's fault. There was no one back. And how does that happen? And you wonder if Lindelof was on the pitch, would he, first of all, he probably wouldn't be in the box the way that Tuanzebe gets in the box. Tuanzebe's a better aerial presence, but would we have been that disorganized if Lindelof is on the pitch? And then you think about this, the one game where Tuanzebe put in a 10 out of 10 performance is the one time he played next to Lindelof. And how much, I can't say this is fact, I am speculating, but how much of Tuanzebe's play there was because he had Lindelof next to him, guiding him, giving him instructions. And that allowed him to thrive against really difficult competition. So I think we were missing Lindelof. We were really missing Luke Shaw. Yeah. And we saw it.
Tellez just isn't doing the job for whatever reason at the moment, Paulie. I'm not seeing the worrying thing about Tellez is I I would be okay if defensively he looked poor, but he's not even doing what he's supposed to be really good at, Paulie, which has been effective in the final third. I'm just not seeing it at the moment.
So if we did any scouting, and the people who did do some scouting are taunting their tweets right now. I did not do any scouting. I stayed very quiet on Alex Telles because my feelings about Alex Telles were I don't trust his numbers. He has a lot of goals and assists in the Portuguese league. He took a lot of penalties. He took the free kicks, and he had a lot of assists on corners. And him delivering the ball would probably make us better. I was skeptical about his defensive aspect of things, but I was like, don't expect him to do this. And my ultimate take was, I don't think he's going to walk into the 11 the way everybody thinks he will. And, you know, it's good to have a left-footed backup for Shaw. That's what we need. When he arrived, I thought he got off to a good start. You know, that game against PSG, he's whipping corners into everybody's head. And I was like, I think we're going to have a 1-1A situation here. So that I think Shaw's still going to be the one because Shaw had been playing well, especially when Telles got COVID. But I think, you know, we're going to see a lot more of the backup left back. And we did at times, but now I think it's more, this was like an opportunity. This was simply to rest Shaw. And I think going forward, we're going to see less Shaw rest. It really, Telles is basically nailed onto the bench at this point. He's here now for when Shaw physically cannot play, when Shaw's not fit, which will happen because Shaw's got a horrible injury record.
Yeah.
But his game just lacks everything else. He's a good crosser, sort of. Yeah. Shaw's been a better crosser this year. In open play, Shaw has completed more crosses than Telles. And now that Shaw's taking free kicks, he's putting those on our heads also.
And corners as well. He's been taking corners, hasn't he? So, yeah.
And he's better defensively. But where he really is better is in the build-up play. Shaw is a ball progressor and Telles just isn't. And some of the people who have been retweeting their scouting reports from September, it's very easy now to look and be like, wow, you were exactly right. And they talked about what would happen. Telles doesn't progress the ball, which is going to force Rashford to come deeper and get it. And it's going to force Bruno to come deeper and get it. And that's what happened. Wan-Bissaka progressed the ball yesterday. Telles didn't. And how you just said, Fernandes had to come deeper. It's like watching a McTominay-Fred game. Fernandes has to come deeper in those games because they're not ball progressors. And Rashford has to come deeper in those games. And now suddenly you wonder why those players aren't effective is because we're not getting them the ball in dangerous areas. I thought Solskjaer went to Luke Shaw too late in this game. You know, people were like, how is he bringing on Luke Shaw when we're down a goal? And it's because Luke Shaw contributes to the buildup better than Alex Telles does.
He can make goals now. Luke Shaw makes goals now, you know, even if it's not directly from an assist. You know, he makes space on that left and he's creative down that side. He helps United take basically as a team. Right. I just want to move it on really quickly. Sorry, carry on.
One more point. Like if you get that ball into the channel and you have one player to run on to whip in a cross at the very end of a game, you want Alex Telles on the end of it. And he had the assist. He took the corner that Maguire scored. The problem is you need to be able to get the ball to the point where you can lay it off into the channel. And Alex Telles struggles. Luke Shaw's much better at getting the ball from point A to point B so that you could then get it from point B to point C. And that's also why, you know, people thought that Solskjaer was nuts against Everton in the League Cup. Why would you bring on Shaw to replace Telles? Telles is a penalty taker. Shaw isn't. And it was like, because Luke Shaw gave us a better chance to win that game in 90 minutes.
In normal time, and we did, yeah. I mean, Paulie, look, I think this is the longest intro we've had for this show. We normally get straight on to what's on social media.
We've mixed it in a bit.
Yeah, exactly. But one more thing I do just want to ask you, Paulie, because it'd be wrong to not sort of balance this argument up a little bit quickly before we do move on to social media. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 6 changes last night, Paulie. That first of all, but also his substitutions, the nature of them, who came on, the timing of them. Is there some blame there or not, do you think?
It's hard to blame for 6 changes because you are trying to rest players. And like we said, you need to rest Cavani. Greenwood and Rashford had both scored against Liverpool. Rashford was rested against Fulham. Greenwood's fresh. He hasn't been playing every day. You can't drop Pogba.
No.
If you don't want to go Pogba Fred or Pogba McTominay, at a certain point you got to get Matic in there. So there's a change. Yeah, I guess he's worried about Lindelof's back. He said that the plan was to play Eric Bailly. He said that, and then Bailly picked up an injury in training, which is what happens with Eric Bailly. So I guess he didn't want to risk Lindelof, so he went to Tuanzebe. Tellez it was just in there to give Shaw a breather, and I think we're going to see less of that going forward. But all these changes, all these guys have played big roles for United this year. This isn't like last season where it's like if you make 6 changes, all of a sudden you've got Mata, Lingard, and Pereira as your front 3. At a certain point, you expect these guys to be quicking, and they're just not quicking regardless of who's been playing for weeks now.
I think it's a good point that you make, Paulie, about, he was having to do it for rotation. And actually, in a strange sort of way, Paulie, I think it will help our league running now when the Europa League comes back, because I don't think he'll get a league game again where he feels it's necessary to rotate 6 people, because he'll do all his rotation now in the Europa League for however long that goes on. I mean, we might be out after the first tie. I seem to think we will be. I don't think we'll have enough for Sociedad if we rotate heavily, but that's fine. But if we, while those Europa League games are happening and that campaign's going now, United, even if they go out early, Paulie, may have some more free midweeks, if you know what I mean. So that'll then allow them to put out a more consistent, strong team in the league, I think. Yeah,
for sure. And, what are we going to do? In the Europa League, you're going to see Pogba get a rest.
Yeah.
You'll probably, you'll definitely see Tellez. You might see Brandon Williams come in. You'll probably see Daniel James, maybe Juan Mata. You'll see Ahmad Diallo certainly off the bench or maybe from the start in one of those 2 games against Sociedad. But remember, you don't have to win them. You could go to Sociedad and get a 0-0 and keep that team tight and, come back to Old Trafford and Club Bruges, we went with a terrible team, 1-1. Then we put out, Igalo and McTominay, Fred were in the midfield, and we blew them out 5-0. Which can happen. Or maybe you keep it close and Pogba comes off the bench for 30 minutes and you win and go to the next round in that. So it's an opportunity where, you could get Pogba 1.5 games of rest in that situation and rotate through your other players. But you're 100% right. The league will be better for it. The other thing about about all the changes is it's hard to say. I understand everybody being 6 changes. That's a lot, but that was 6 changes from the game on Sunday, which had how many changes from the game before that, and how many? We don't have a set first 11 this year. That all of a sudden we're bringing on, when we make 6 changes, it's players that haven't played with each other, right?
Pogba, the 6 players that came on were good players, Paulie. They weren't plucked from the academy or from the reserves.
Greenwood, Rashford, Martial are a front 3 that have played how many games together with Bruno? Matic and Pogba have played together more than the second most out of any midfield pair. These are, and they've played how many games with that front 4? So there's a lot of changes, but when Cavani comes in, how many does Cavani always play at a certain formation with a certain partner? No, he's played with Rashford and Greenwood. He's played with Greenwood and Martial. They've all played with each other. That they should look regular, or they should look normal again. But in reality, we played Leeds. We blew the door off them. We played Everton. It was not as dominant as people made it out, but we got the job done. We played Leicester, which was a bit of a disappointing game, but we played well. And since then, we just have not been firing. And we've been doing it with a lot of smoke and mirrors. We've been coming up with wins when we need it, with goals when we need it. The defense has been letting us down. This is the time of the season where you have to, your defense you can't lose if you don't concede. And we conceded some dumb goals yesterday. They've been letting us down, and you don't know where the next goal is going to come from right now. And that's the problem.
No, thank you, Paulie. Look, guys, a few of you have asked us about the Arsenal game, how we set up for that. We will get to that at the end. We will have a quick chat about Arsenal at the end. But for now, Paulie, let's take a look at what's on social media. So yeah, Paulie, I think I might have come to that a bit quick, so I'll let you get prepared there, mate. But look, my point that I want to make on this, Paulie, is that we've been on a great run. You can say obviously like you just have that. We haven't always played well, but we have been churning out good results. We've been getting the wins that we needed, but there has been some absolute garbage that's been going around Twitter, and just some that's it. I love the way that you put that up there in big bold writing, Paulie. Abuse, because there is no other word for it, is there? I mean, Paulie, I'm always a bit hesitant to talk about this. We're two sort of white men in our 30s. Well, I'm in my 30s. I'm pretty sure you are as well. Are you in your 30s? Or?
I am.
Yeah, Western white men in our 30s, and we're probably not the best placed people to talk about racism, are we, to be fair, Paulie? But look, and I don't want to spend too much time.
We're not talking about saying I understand your plight or anything.
Yeah.
We are certainly in a position where we could say, don't be a fucking racist.
Exactly. And that's the point. Yeah, that's the point that we want to get across here, Paulie.
I mean, not superior to you because my skin is whiter than yours. Like,
yeah.
No.
But Paulie, my issue with all this is that, and the thing that I cannot process in my mind, look, I live here and I live with my parents at the moment because of the lockdown situation. They will tell you last night, when that game finished, I went to bed. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was angry. I was disappointed. But at no point, Paulie, did I ever get the urge to pick up my phone or any other device and start aiming at abuse at our players, Paulie. I mean, what is this all about? I mean, help me on this, Paulie.
And what do you gain from it? What do you gain from it? Well, I mean, certainly we've had situations where we're down a goal or something and United break and, like the Liverpool situation and Rashford doesn't pass the ball and I'll scream, God damn it, you fucking fuck. But like, all right, cool. I got it out of my system. Do I need to go and put that online? Like, will that make me feel better? That's just anger. I'm not going to call him a name and I'm not going to call him something about the color of his skin. That just don't be a racist. It's really not that difficult. And I don't get it. And it's the treatment that is coming down on Tuanzebe is disgusting. And that's all we have to say about this, about the racism part, because we're going to shift now to the same word, but in a different way.
Can I just say something as well, Paulie? I've just done some quick maths in my head. I think there was 6 black players playing for Manchester United last night. What I would class as black players, 5 white English players. And there is no way that the 2 that have been a target of this abuse and the other black players on that team, they are not the reason Manchester United lost this game last night. Tuanzebe is just unfortunate that he was the player that the ball deflected off for the goal. I could tell you, Paulie, right now, that in Matic, a white player in Matic can prevent that goal from doing something really, really simple. But yet nobody wants to
Tellez. Bruno Fernandes was doing
concentrate on that, Paul. Nobody wants to talk about that for some reason.
No, someone on Facebook wrote, you could just imagine Pogba and Martial going into halftime dancing in the dressing room while Ali is trying to give the team a rollicking. And it's like, Paul Pogba was the best player that we had yesterday. And you know how racist do you have to be like, oh, Pogba, when Ali's mad, Pogba was probably ignoring him and dancing in the dressing room. Get the fuck out of here.
I can imagine Bruno Fernandes and Harry Maguire walking into the dressing room and having a cup of fucking tea, Paulie. You know what I mean? It's like, stop. Like, the stigma has to... Well, we're not going to make it stop on this show, Paulie. It's a wider issue than all of us. But I'm just sick of it, Paulie, because I wouldn't mind if people want to criticize / abuse, but at least be accurate with where you're aiming your shots as well, because they weren't the players to blame for last night, not solely anyway.
Right. And I just want to make this clear that we're not comparing these two things. We are going to just shift away from the racism thing right now, but focus on the same word, abuse, because there was other abuse. As soon as we lost, everybody got back on their agenda. And I'm seeing people just being, they're going after players. And then this match was proof that Harry Maguire doesn't deserve to be captain and we should be giving the captaincy to Bruno. What did Bruno do yesterday? Maguire scored a goal and created another one that was disallowed. What did Bruno Fernandes do? He didn't have a good game, which is fine. He's had plenty of good games, and you're not going to have a good game every game. But how does, why are you all of a sudden on your agenda? Or the guy who had a 17-tweet thread about why we should be sacking Ollie, including he lost a game to the last place team. What place were Blackburn in when United lost 3-2 in that game under Ferguson? They were towards the bottom of the, United have lost games. They lost to Norwich, I think in 2010, the year they lost they lost the Premier League by a point. They lost to Norwich at home, or maybe on the road. They lost to Villa at home one year. If you're going to make a decision on one game, I don't want you to. I hope that you're not in charge of making decisions for your job or anything, because you do not have a fair way of analyzing things. No. Criticism is fine because nobody played well. Pogba had a good game, but Pogba played well and he did some defensive work, but nobody else really did. Martial was poor. That's fine. You could say
I'll be honest
talk
with
about why he was poor. You don't have to talk about it's because he's lazy, and it's the one thing I'll say is Martial in this same fixture last year, that late January midweek fixture against Burnley when we lost 2-0, that was Martial's worst game of the season. He looked completely disinterested. He couldn't get involved. Then that weekend we played Wolves and it was more of the same. And then 2 weeks later, we're back against Chelsea. He scores a big goal. He looked fantastic. Then we go to Bruges. He creates the one goal we score on his own. Then we play City in the derby. He scores a great goal. You don't want to see this happen year after year after year. It's something that he needs to adjust to. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's the end of the world, because as the season bears down and it's cold and it's winter and who knows what's going on in his personal life, but it's catching up to him and he's a bit fatigued. He's not playing so well. I also have seen him do this year after year, and I know he can respond to it. So that's not why I'm going to say, hey, I'm not going to talk about that to be like you were bad. I'm going to say you were bad for these reasons. Mason Greenwood was the only brightish spot of that front three, but he still wasn't good yesterday either. And you highlight it. We highlighted at the beginning of the show. He gets the ball out wide, and it's a simple pass to Wan-Bissaka in space. And instead, he pulls it back onto his left foot, and that allows Sheffield to get back. So, yeah, he's the only one shooting, but he's taking bad shots because he's not allowing he's not making a simple decision that would allow United to get better shots.
Yeah. No, I just want to say as well, Paulie, I don't know if you're still with the sorry, I thought you'd froze there for it. I want to say as well, I just think the whole thing around captaincy, going back to the Maguire point, Paulie, it's just not an argument and something worth abusing somebody else. In the game of football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, Paulie, the captain. Look, if you're going to be a successful team, Paulie, you need lots of captain in your team. And I think that's a lot of the reason why United are doing so well at the moment, is because they brought characters into this squad now that can play captain roles. And I just think it's one of those aspects of our game that people just get overhyped about Harry Maguire actually being club captain. I don't know why people are so bothered about it. There are other sports around the world and in this country where the captain plays a much more pivotal role in the determination and result of a game than he does in a game of football, Paul. It is literally just there by status in football. There is and leadership. There is nothing more to it. Maguire doesn't say, in the game, he doesn't make a substitution that changes the game, Paul. He doesn't do something. He can't refer or challenge something. He's just captain by name, and I think people make way too much of it.
Yeah, I think that we have two comments in here that are opposite, but both good. So from Aravind saying captaincy is overhyped, for sure. You need more than that. And then from NZ saying we cried out for leadership. You can't just have one, and we don't have enough as it is. There's validity to that too. But
yeah,
McGuire's our captain. We talked about how Lindelof is very vocal on the pitch. Luke Shaw's very vocal on the pitch. Bruno Fernandes, you see what he does. Scott McTominay is Paul Pogba is a captain off the pitch. He's not a yeller on the pitch, but he is clearly a leader off the pitch. You know, we've all seen that video in the French dressing room.
But that's just the same for me, Paulie. Captain off the pitch has just as much value as captain on the pitch, because captain on the pitch doesn't really do a lot, in all honesty.
And that's the thing about Maguire. When people yell, like, again, I was told by somebody in the dressing room that by September of last year, it was Harry Maguire's team. And everyone knew that. And that was a senior person in the dressing room who said everyone knew, you know, he had been here for 8 weeks and everybody already knew this was his team. And that's the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see, that maybe we don't see it on the pitch. McTominay, we see it on the pitch. Unfortunately, he's just not good at football. And you know, yesterday we probably could have used someone with his leadership on the pitch, but we also needed people that, you know, could play football. I wish we could get the best of both worlds with him. Unfortunately, one or the other. Yeah. So we're going to see him again because those qualities are important, but those qualities also come at the expense of other things. Everything is give and take. You give some, you lose some, and that's because we have an incomplete team. Remember, we always talk about this show, the 4 out of 5 thing. And this has been the next set of 5 games. You know, when we lost to PSG, we had won 4 out of our last 5. And since then, we have won 3 out of every 5. And this, again, we won 3 out of 5. That's about a 78-ish point, a 76-point pace. If you win 3 out of every 5 games and draw 1 and lose 1, that's a 10-point increase over last year. We were playing at a 78-point pace. That's not enough to win the title. Like, we're only in this position because other teams are there. So it's a matter of, do we kick on and try to kick into an extra gear and really go for it? Or does Ollie know, like, we're not there yet, and I still need to bring McTominay and Fred in for some games, and I still need to, you know, to play this way. And there's going to be lumps. There's going to be bruises. They're still young. As Lucas just said, leaders emerge through experience. We're still inexperienced.
Yeah, and I mean, there's loads of experienced players in the team. I just thought this is a good point Aravin made here. I don't know if you've seen, I mean, in America, cricket's not that popular, Paulie, but cricket is a fantastic example. I mean, the captain in cricket makes all the decisions, Paulie. He's the one. I don't know if baseball's the same, but he chooses he chooses who bowls. So he has an impact on the game, like almost like a manager on the pitch, and that is such a good example. And I just think the captaincy is so overhyped. And if you're going to be a successful team, you have to have about 6 or 7 players, I think, in your team that are capable of being captain. And United are getting there. United are getting there.
The itself just gives you the right to talk to the ref.
Of course it does. That's all it really does.
Remember when David Moyes got fired and we named Ryan Giggs the player manager. And he finally gave us what we wanted and subbed himself on for that game against Hull City.
Yeah.
Nemanja Vidic was still wearing the armband. Which one of those guys has more power? Which one of those guys makes decisions?
Exactly, yeah. That's a great example. And you see other player managers in football, more down the pyramid, obviously, in England, but it's the same. But yeah, you're absolutely spot on. Paulie, look, we have spent a lot of time on this. I do want to look a little bit forward now, obviously, towards the weekend. It's become a really dangerous game. I was thinking if we beat Sheffield United last night, we could possibly get away with a point against Arsenal, but I think that's become a must-win for a number of reasons. One, because of the league situation, but also for the confidence of this team. It is, in a way, it's the perfect game, but in a way it's not, because obviously our recent record against them has not been great. But it's a perfect game in the sense of if United can go there, be dominant and win, it can get that confidence back that they lost maybe last night.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I actually said yesterday that our best chance of winning against Arsenal is to lose this game, because they are a tough team to face. It's a quote unquote big game, kind of, but it's not. They are a team that, they're not a top 6 team. They finished 8th last year, and they're not. And where are they? 8th, 9th right now. So
you answer that afterwards, Paul. Answer that afterwards, Paulie.
Am I going to recommend a diamond? Well, we played a diamond against Arsenal last time, and it very much did not work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It very much did not work.
I think that's why they're teasing you. To be fair, Paulie. Anyway, sorry, I broke your flow there. Carry on, mate.
So it's really hard to approach this game. Arsenal are a team that play with a lot of the ball, but they don't do a lot with it. They're doing more with it now, which does that mean that maybe we'll be better off with, like treating it as a big game? I don't know. That's the problem. I think you need to really set up to take the game to Arsenal because they are a team. The way they play with the ball and move it around, they're a possession-heavy team, but you're not going to catch them in transition. They protect against transitions well. So I don't know if McTominay and Fred is going to work to try to hit him on the counter because they're good at preventing counters. I do think he's going to go to McTominay and Fred though. And then move Pogba out wide. And it scares me because I don't think that formation is really as effective as we all think it is.
And Paulie, you can't talk about McTominay and Fred in the midfield and in the same conversation say dominate the game, mate.
Right. You can't. And look, Thomas Partey dominated McTominay and Fred last time we played. Do we expect him to do?
He may be injured though, which may be a positive for you. He did limp off in their last game.
I don't think that this McTominay Fred with Pogba on the wing thing is as effective as we think it is. When have we done it? We did it for 9 minutes against Everton, scored a goal. Cavani and Bruno had their own little counterattack by themselves. And then since then, all right, we brought him on to face it for the last half hour of Leicester. We played that way against Aston Villa. We've played that way against City and everything. We have scored.
Liverpool
We have scored 2 goals from open play with this combination. So even though you say, oh, well, it gets Pogba on the pitch and involved and we get his creativity and he's playing further up, it's not translating into goals. And ultimately, that's what we need. And we saw it happen when we moved him into the middle against Liverpool. Were we a bit more open? Yes. But we were also more direct and we scored more goals. I feel like you need to have him in the middle of the field against Arsenal. I don't think Scott McTominay has ever beaten Arsenal.
Oh dear. The positives this is the happy hour, guys. Do stick with us.
It's a tough call. It's a tough call. And I hope for the best, but I do think that the loss is going to help us because now, it's a kick in the rear end and it's a wake up versus if we came off on another win, it would just be, at a certain point we would be tripping up and Arsenal would be the prime team to do that. So now we come in having to say, oh, we need to get our heads on straight.
Yeah, and I think these are good points. Arsenal play low block, and that's the worry with Arsenal, Paulie, because they're a high-class team that play a way that we don't want teams to play. I mean, it's all well and good playing a low block against, the bottom 10 teams and thinking, it's all right, they haven't got the quality like we probably thought last night to beat us in Sheffield United. But Arsenal can play that way, but we also know that when they get the ball forward now, especially the way they're playing at the moment, they have the quality to be effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're mistaking. They're good defensively and they don't score goals for they play a low block. They played a very high block against us last time. We just couldn't move the ball. We couldn't get it over the midfield line, but their defenders were standing on the midfield line. They pressed this high. They pass the ball to death. They're like Louis van Gaal's United. Yeah. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily playing deep. They're a team that they average 52% possession. They're not a team that's just going to sit back and let you have the ball. That's not their way. They want the ball. No. So to say that it's a low block is inaccurate. We're confusing not scoring a lot of goals and being good defensively with how did we get there?
Yeah, fair enough. And one last question, Paulie. Anthony Martial. I mean, Aravin's put up here that he'd go Pogba, Fred in midfield and Bruno, and then Arash Cavani and Greenwood as a 3 up front. He's obviously leaving Martial. Has the time come now for Martial to sit it out for a game or two? And have we got to that point, do you think?
Yes. You know who I think would actually be good in this game?
Dan James.
No. Donny van de Beek.
Okay, wow, we found a game that might be suitable for Donny. Why do you say that?
I think they can use his passing and his touch up front. They were the issue that they had last night. They were really missing his one-touch ability and his ability to play in tight spaces on the edge of that box.
Yeah.
The issue with Donny van de Beek is it's like the Alex Tellez issue is you put him in there and then we struggle to get the ball to the edge of the box as much. So you can't play him in a pivot. He came in, we took Tuanzebe off, we dropped Matic back, and we put Van de Beek in a pivot next to Pogba when we're chasing a goal, and only three of his 9 passes were forwards. How can you do that when you're chasing a goal and come in and only pass backwards?
People saying here though, Paulie, as a 10 or on the left, I mean, what are you suggesting? If he plays as the 10, are you suggesting Bruno goes into that double pivot? Well, that can be interesting if he's alongside a defensive-minded player.
No, I'd play him on the left or the right, probably the right. Let Rashford play on the left, and Cavani down the middle with Pogba and someone.
We all know you want to say Fred, but you know it won't be Fred. That's why you don't want to say
Fred. I mean, if it's McTominay, then it'll be like, all right, we're going to see goals on both sides. Just give me someone. It's going to be McTominay and Fred. Like, let's not pretend any differently.
All right, mate. Well, thank you ever so much, Paulie, and thank you to everyone who's got involved today. Our loyal listeners, our loyal viewers, you're fantastic. You are the reason why we continue to create this content and continue to keep bringing it to you twice a week. Thank you for all your interaction. Thank you for getting involved. I think somebody asked us earlier, is this the first loss after, is this the first happy hour after a loss? It is indeed. We said that at the top of the show, but don't worry about that.
After a Premier League loss.
After a Premier League loss, yeah. Win, lose, or draw, we will always be with you guys. But until next Tuesday, that's all for now. Thanks again for joining us, and this has been United Happy Hour, and we'll see you next week.